speak of the events that led to the downfall of the first men kingdoms of the Vale, we must turn to the realm of songs and legend. The singers say the hosts of Robar Royce and Artys Arryn, the Falcon Knight, came together at the foot of the Giant's Lance, within a league of the house where Sir Artys had been born. Though the armies were roughly equal in number, Robar Royce held the high ground, with the mountains at his back, a strong defensive position. Having arrived day before the Andals, the first men had dug trenches in front of their ranks and lined them with sharpened stakes. Most of the first men were afoot. The Andals had 10-1 advantage in mounted knights and were better armed than armoured as well. They came late to the battle, if tales are true. King Robar had looked for them 3 days earlier, and every day since. It was dusk when the Andal army finally appeared, to raise their tents half a league from their foes. But even in that fading light, Robar Royce did not fail to mark their leader. His silver armour and winged helm made the Falcon Knight unmistakable, even from afar. No doubt that night that followed was a restless one in both camps, for every man there knew the battle would be joined at the break of day, with the Vale itself hanging in the balance. Clouds blew in from the east, hiding the moon and stars, so the night was dark indeed. The only light came from hundreds of campfires burning in the camps, with a river of darkness between them. From time to time, the singers say archers on one side or another lofted arrows into the air, hoping that it might find a foe, but whether any of these blind shafts drew blood, the tales do not tell us. As the east began to lighten, men rose from their stony beds, donned their armour and prepared for battle. Then a shout rang out through the Andal camp. There, to the west, a sign had been seen, 7 stars gleaming in the grey dawn sky. The gods are with us, a cry went up from 1,000 throats. Victory will be ours. As trumpets blew, the vanguard of the Andals charged up the slope, banners streaming. Yet the first men showed no dismay at the sign that appeared in the sky. They held their ground, and battle was joined. As savage and bloody a fight as any in the long history of the Vale or Westeros. 7 times the Andals charged, the singers say. 6 times the first men threw them back, but the 7th attack, led by a fearsome giant of a man named Torgold Tollet, broke through. Torgold the Grim, this man was called, but even his name was a jape, for it was written that he went into battle laughing, naked above the waist, with a bloody 7-pointed star carved across his chest and an axe in each hand. The songs say that Torgold knew no fear and felt no pain, though bleeding from a score of wounds. He cut a red swathe through Lord Redford's staunched warriors, then took his lordship's armour at the shoulder with a single cut. Nor was he dismayed when the sorceress Ursula Upcliffe appeared upon a blood-red horse to curse him. By then he was bare-handed, having left both his axes buried in the foe's chest. But the singers say he leapt upon the witch's horse, grasped her face between 2 bloody hands, and tore her head from her shoulders as she screamed. Then chaos ensued, as the Andals came pouring through the gap in the ranks of the first men. Victory now seemed all within their grasp, but Robar Royce was not so easily defeated. Where another man might have fallen back to regroup or fled the field of battle, the High King of the Vale commanded a counterattack, leading the charge himself, smashing through the confusion with his champions by his side. In his hand was Lady Forlorn, the dreaded blade that he had plucked from the dead hands of the King of the Fingers. And slaying men right and left, the king fought his way to Torgold. As Robar slashed at his head, Torgold grabbed his blade, still laughing. Lady Forlorn sliced through his hand and buried herself in Torgold's skull. The giant died choking on his last laugh, the singers say. Whereupon the High King spied the Falcon Knight across the field and spurred towards him. Should their leader fall, the Andals would lose heart and break, he hoped. They came together as the battle raged on around them. The king in his bronze armour, the hero in his silvered steel. Though the Falcon Knight's armour flashed brilliantly in the morning sun, his sword was no Lady Forlorn. The duel was done almost before it began, as the Valyrian steel sheared through the winged helm and laid the Andal low. For an instant, as his foe toppled from his saddle, Robar Royce must have surely thought he'd won the battle. Then he heard trumpets ringing through the dawn air, the sound coming from behind him, and turning in his saddle, the High King beheld, in dismay, 500 fresh Andal knights pouring down the slopes of the Giant's Lance to take his own host in the rear. Leading the attack was a champion in silver steel, with a moon and falcon on his head and wings upon his warhelm. Sir Artys Arryn had clad one of his knights retainers in a spare suit of armour, leaving him in camp, whilst he himself took his best horsemen up and around the goat track he remembered from his childhood, so they might reappear behind the first men and descend on them from above. The rest was a rout. Attacked from the front and rear, The last great host of the first men of the Vale was cut to pieces. 30 lords had come to fight for Robar Royce. Not one survived. And though the singers say the High King slew foes by the score, in the end he too was slain. Some say Artys Arryn killed him, whilst others named Lord Rothamont or Lucian Templeton, the Knight of the Nine Stars. The Corbrays of Heart's Home have always insisted it was Sir Jaime Corbray who dealt the mortal blow, and for proof they point to Lady Forlorn, reclaimed for House Corbray after the battle. No fewer than 14 of the oldest and noblest houses of the Vale ended that day. Those whose lines endured, the Redfords, the Hunters, the Coldwaters, the Belmores, and the Royces themselves, did so only by yielding up gold and land to their conquerors, and bending their knees, swearing fealty to Artys Arryn, the first of his name, newly crowned King of the Mountain and Vale. In time, some of these fallen houses would regain much of the pride and wealth and power lost on the battlefield that day, but that will require the passage of centuries. As for the victors, the Arryns would rule the Vale as kings until the coming of Aegon the Conqueror and his sisters, and served as Lords of the Eyrie and Protectors of the Vale, and Wardens of the East. And from that day forth, the Vale itself has been known as the Vale of Arryn.